So I've noticed a lot of comments online saying that Spider-Man comics suck now. Blame the writers, the editorial staff, or Paul, whoever Paul is. I don't know, I haven't kept up with the current comics. Now, I think there's a deeper issue at hand that's causing these problems to arise than just bad writing. One that's plagued Marvel Comics for a long time. The biggest thing holding the Spider-Man title back, and Marvel by extension, is their strict adherence to continuity. People will say, "Why did Peter and Mary Jane break up for the dozenth time?" Or,
"Why did they retcon his death in that story?"
well, besides lazy writing, it's because the book has to go on seemingly forever. As long as a comic is successful, the book can never end. That means that Spider-Man and every popular Marvel hero will always be stuck in the perpetual middle of their stories. So even if Peter and Mary Jane get back together, the marriage is restored, they have a kid, and give older readers everything they wanted, that doesn't guarantee that Marvel won't just undo it later. I hate to be a downer, but if you don't like that Spider-Man or any superhero comic is constantly shifting tones and arbitrarily picking events to retcon, then maybe you've just grown out of the market for superhero comics. I personally fell out of them for this very reason. As I got older, I wanted stories that had a clear beginning, middle, and end, but with superheroes, I'd never get that. And, maybe that wouldn't be so bad on its own, but this is the same medium where all of these iconic characters have died on several occasions only to come back to life within the same year as if it never happened. And when you kill the threat of death, then these stories lose any dramatic weight because it doesn't matter if the hero wins or loses because they'll be back in the next volume anyway. The old phrase that no one stays dead in comics except for Bucky, Jason Todd, and Uncle Ben has been outdated for decades. Now, this baggage doesn't excuse Marvel from not trying to do better, and it would be pointless to criticize without offering a solution. So, here's how I would fix Spider-Man. I would start writing him as an adult. It's fine for the character to have money problems, I mean, the price of housing is only going up, but after a while, his lack of stability anywhere in his life starts to become infuriating considering he's a 29 to 31-year-old now? And this is the same character that got married, almost had a kid, had a stable job as a high school science teacher, and even owned his own tech company which went on to rival Stark Industries. It reaches a point where it becomes ridiculous that he's done all of these things and still somehow gets stuck living with his old aunt again. So, let the character move forward into the next phase of his life. Marvel wants to have him young and relatable, but you can't do that anymore when he's canonically near 30 and been through all this crap. So, allow Peter Parker to grow up and let Miles Morales take over as the young, relatable teenage Spider-Man. I mean, he was already supposed to be filling that role once he moved into the main continuity back in 2015, but I guess someone didn't get the memo. If you did this, you could have both the young and learning Spider-Man and the older and wiser Spider-Man. One for younger readers, one for older readers. But with the instability of comics in mind, there is another option. One you may not like. Option 2, just reboot the whole universe. I know a lot of fans don't like that idea, but I think this is the best possible route Marvel could take if things keep going the way they are. The Marvel Universe has been a mess of retcons, a rotating door of death and revival, and a shared universe whose character timelines don't even match up for ages. When rebooting, you don't have to retell the same stories the same way. The MCU versions of these characters and their origins aren't exact to the comics. In fact, in some cases it's completely different. Continuity stops being a good thing when it comes to the detriment of the stories being told. I've seen non-comics fans say online that they can't get into comics because the continuity is too confusing, or that your average superhero wiki page reads more like a joke than a mythology. My brother has told me that he can't be bothered to care about the comic book versions of these characters because of the constant retcons. So, start fresh. At this point, I don't think it could be any worse than what they're already doing. But, let's take it one step further. We reset every 5 to 10 years at most. Before anyone mentions it, I'm aware that the Ultimate Universe was made precisely to do this, but the problem is that the Ultimate Universe went on for too long. Way past its best-by date. It lasted 15 years, far longer than anyone expected it to, ironically becoming the same mess of continuity plot threads that it was trying to avoid in the first place. This way, you can refresh the stories for new generations of readers and keep the books from going on for too long and ending up like the Ultimate Universe. The American comics industry wasn't always like this. Like any art form, comic genres would ebb and flow in popularity. Superheroes actually lost a lot of their appeal to readers once World War II ended and their fathers came back home. So, other genres took over. Westerns, romance, and horror comics all had their moment as the new hot thing. The superhero genre didn't come back into popularity again until the 60s. You know, I remember when I was a kid and first-person shooters were the most popular game genre. There were so many CODs and COD knockoffs that you couldn't get rid of them. Then their popularity died down and the next big trend took over. I don't even remember what it was. That's how things normally go with any artistic medium. The fact that superhero comics have lasted this long as their dominant genre is unprecedented. Now, I know that a lot of people aren't going to like this idea, but these really are the only options at this point. Either start writing the character like an adult and progress him forward, or reset him to the beginning. Because keeping him in an eternal state of arrested development into his 30s is just turning readers off. You can't have it both ways. So, do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave a comment telling me how you feel. I really enjoy having these kinds of discussions with people. And hey, if you don't care for the word of some random androgynous catboy, then try reading the arguments for a line-wide reboot from a professional and former Spidey writer, Jerry Conway. I'll leave the link to his Twitter thread on this topic. Just be warned, it's a long one.